everybody. Thanks for coming. Thank you to hi camera people at home on the Zoom. Thanks to those who are watching on Zoom. And let's please give a round of applause to thank our candidates for agreeing to serve our community. I'm Ellen Marcial. I'm chair of the nominating committee. 3 of my 4 colleagues on the nominating committee are here today. Gail Olenek, Tony Schwab, and Ruth Gross is over here. Give them a round of applause too, please. I would also like to recognize Lee Mansis and Anita Romaine, who are handling the recording of this candidate forum for later viewing and also for running the Zoom for us. Yay. So our goal today is to present the candidates with questions that will give them an opportunity to introduce themselves and their ideas, values, and positions. We will be here for approximately 2 hours. I will ask a total of 9 questions. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to questions 1 through 8, and then 2 minutes to respond to question number 9. There are advantages and disadvantages to being the first to respond. So we will draw names out of a hat for each question to see who goes first, and then proceed alphabetically. Each candidate will go first only once. Gail and Tony will be our timers today. One of them will hold up this sign at the 30-second mark, and then this one when their 1 minute is up. Again, this will serve as an introduction to the candidates and to some of the topics of interest here at Oceana. A second forum with the same format but different questions will be held on Thursday, February 15th at the 9:45 a.m. coffee hour. Having been introduced to the candidates in these forums, we hope you will follow up with the candidates individually or in smaller group settings to further explore their positions and to express your own ideas and concerns. Today's forum and the one next Thursday are not interactive. We request that everyone here be respectful. There will be an opportunity for one-on-one time with the candidates at the informal Meet the Candidates event on Saturday, February 17th at 1 p.m. So a week from today, right here in the auditorium. There will be no moderator for that event and no time limits. Today's forum and the one next Thursday are being recorded. A link to view the videos will be sent in an email as soon as the videos are ready. Just a couple of housekeeping notes. Please silence your cell phones if you haven't already. And by explanation, Teresa fell yesterday, so she may have to stand just to kind of shake out her legs a little bit. So if you see her standing from time to time, even though she's not talking, that's just to take care of her injury. And Sandy had surgery a little bit ago on her foot, so you'll see that John and Sandy are not in alphabetical order, so that Sandy can put her foot up on the chair next to her. So, but we got everybody covered, everybody accommodated. Okay, so I think that's it. Here we go. Okay, so the first question is, why should residents vote to elect you to the board? Why should residents vote to elect you to the board? So Ruth is handing out hard copies of the questions. Would you draw someone's name out of the hat, please?
John Vogt.
So John Vogt will go first. Okay. All right. So when we proceed, we'll go as if you were at the end. So we'll go John, Sandy, and then come down to Lisa, Teresa, and then finish the alphabet up there. Okay, so John, the 1 minute will start when you start talking.
Okay, well, the Lord has been good to me in giving me still health and time. I feel negligent if I didn't at least offer to try to help within the community. I've been on the board for 4.5 years. I really appreciate that the community gave me a couple of years vacation, but I'm ready to come back and try to help. I guess you probably know as well from the 4.5 years of what I have to offer. And that is, I'll try to do the best job I can, try to listen to people, try to be as much as possible a peacemaker. Certainly we all have ideas, but it's foolish for us to sit up here and say we know how things should be, because the board gets information, discussion, and it's only after we've heard that and heard from the community that we should have any kind of, locked into any kind of a position on really almost any issue.
Okay, thank you, John. Sandy Reiser.
Hi, I'm Sandy Reiser, and I've lived in Oceana for over 8 years. During the day, I own my own business organizing large musical events. I've been on the OCA board the last 2 years, and I've served as president this past year. I bring a real-world approach to the management of the association. I've left my personal agenda at the door by bringing an open mind and commitment to serve the entire community even through some pretty difficult times. We currently have a great board, and I hope you all recognize that. They've been willing to put in the hard work so that future boards do not have to put in the kind of work that we've had to do, and I really look forward to that part if I'm elected again. But I was willing to do the hard work and get that done. I have certainly learned that this is not for the faint of heart. I promise to tell you the truth, tell you what I thought what it take would fix it, and do what was right for every homeowner in Oceana, and I think it's made me a really good board member.
Thank you, Sandy. Lisa Baggett.
Hi there, I'm Lisa Baggett. I'm the one with hair on fire. Yes, I want to see change. I'm all about action. I have extensive financial background, extensive managerial background. I've served on numerous committees here, the top one being architecture, where some of my greatest concerns stem from. In addition, I am 100% homeowner driven. Not driven by vendors, not driven by the board, driven by you, the homeowners. Most important to me is water mitigation. That's something I worked on in strategic planning and again in the ad hoc committee. This is a very large budget item that we have, and we need to keep our costs under control. I'm also for supporting the activities committee, who has been very successful in doing some fundraising for us. The combination of saving money and raising money will continue to put us on a much stronger footing. And for that, I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Karen Bishop.
Hi, I'm Karen Bishop. I've been on the board for 2 years. My first year I was vice president. This past year I'm secretary. Excuse me. When I ran 2 years ago, I had a goal of following the law, being transparent, and holding the HOA accountable. I feel like we've made great strides in all 3 of those areas. This was the most transparent board that we've had. We've made sure that anytime we made a decision, it was backed up by the law. And with the HOA, we now have a management company so that the board can be the board, make policy decisions, and leave the management to First Service Residential. My background is I have my doctorate in education. As an education administrator, I started a company with 3 high schools. I also was the CFO of the New School of Architecture. I've had to do a lot of financial work with auditors, prepare audits for the U.S. Department of Education and accreditation. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Kelly Byrne.
Good afternoon, and first of all, I want to thank everybody for being here today and also on the Zoom call. I've been on the board for the past 2.5 out of the last 3 years. First as treasurer, then as president, and then was unanimously appointed into this last board. I believe that we should listen to all and continue to have open communication with the homeowners. I believe in being here for all 932 of the homeowners. I've stayed up to date on the court proceedings from the very beginning, and although very complicated, I try and explain that to everybody who asks me questions. I would like to bring to this community emergency preparedness plans so that everyone knows what to do in case of an emergency. I have the background and experience in this area, having been a retired patrol sergeant from LAPD. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. Teresa Chamberlain-Sprayland.
Thank you. And also thank you, Ari, for coming and people watching on Zoom. I think I would bring a new perspective to the board, and why I'm asking for your vote is because you need one of me on the board. In the sense of someone who has a sense of humor to infuse into seriousness, but I also have a brain, and style of communication tends to be, I like to listen to air all the perspectives, and then my thinking from my professional careers have taught me to go ahead and bring out the good points that everybody has. And I also am a great consensus person. I am truly a team player. And with residents, I'm concerned about making sure our infrastructure stays good, so the value of our property stay good, and that we can afford to live here for the rest of my life. And let's see if there's something else I wanted to add. These guys are a tough act to follow. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Teresa. Kurt, and let me say, Kurt and Kathleen, you guys have microphones that have wires. They're pretty fussy. You have to hold them right close to your mouth, straight on, not like this. So, sorry, you guys. Go, Kurt.
Okay, like an ice cream cone.
Right.
Thank you all for coming. I didn't know whether I would really follow through with this, and I'm feeling very confident that I did. I've been in Oceana for 6 years now. I've been in Oceanside for 30. I never thought that I would live here, and now that I am, I'm happy to say this is a dream location. My purpose for running, frankly, is maybe self-serving, but I think it's also serving you. It's preserving the equity and the largest financial investment that I've made in my life. It's here. And I think we're all in this together. We got a good group of people. Being on the board is finding the best choice, the best decision. And I think sometimes it's better to look outside for experts than to try to make all the decisions with 7 folks. So that's kind of what I'm doing, is looking to find where are the experts. They live in this community and they can help to contribute as well.
Thanks, Kurt. Kathleen Dowling, same thing. Hold the mic right up to your mouth and kind of straight on.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Kathleen Dowling, and I've lived here 8 to 10 years, off and on. I think residents should vote to elect me for the board because they might want to know more about what's going on. I go to every board meeting, either Zoom or I attend, and that's been my MO for many years. I find it very hard to get information, and I'm not faulting the board, they do an excellent job, but when you want information, you want to be able to get information. As I go around the community, people don't know what's really going on. They don't know we have this big giant lawsuit. They don't know what we're doing about it, and that's why I asked for your vote, because I think I can be a conduit so that everybody knows what's going on, and if we have an informed community, then we can help guide the board to make great decisions. And basically, that's it.
Thanks, Kathleen. Peggy Moore.
I'm Peggy Moore, and I have served on the board of directors for the last 2.5 years. 1 full term and a half of an additional term. And I'm very invested in the resolve of the legal issues around the land lease. I worked with John from the very beginning on the land lease committee. I've researched it thoroughly. I was in the room with the mediation, which would have been a win-win for both parties. And I'd like to be in the room when the biggest decisions are made that benefit all 932 homeowners. And I look forward to working with the board. I can say the last 2 boards that I've served on have been the hardest working boards, and I fully appreciate all of your support.
Okay, thank you. Question number 2, candidates. What is something that the current board or a previous board accomplished that you appreciate? So what is something that the current board or a previous board accomplished that you appreciate? And we'll go to someone different this time. Please pull a name out of the hat.
Peggy Moore.
Okay, thank you, Charlie. Peggy Moore will go first, and the clock will start when you start speaking.
I would have to say equalization. I worked, again, with John and previous boards in doing the hard work to get a fair and equitable assessment and follow the CC&Rs. So I'd have to say equalization was a lot of work, and we got it done. And that is the jumping point to resolve a lot of the issues around the land lease.
Okay, thanks Peggy. John Vogt?
With regard to the current board, I spotted 3 things that I especially appreciated. Appreciated going to the fob system. I appreciated the fact that they continued the fight against the land lease company to either get the land lease company to pay for the replacements like a landlord normally has to do. When something breaks down, the landlord has a responsibility to replace it, not the tenant. Appreciated those 2 items, and I appreciated the fact that after careful work, they went to a management company. In my day, we were trying to manage it ourselves, and I guess we'll have to admit that didn't work so well. So we have high hopes that with the management company, that's going to be a major improvement for the community.
Thanks, John. Sandy Reiser?
Yes, so I think the 23-24 board has worked tirelessly to provide lots of areas of communication. So we also hear a lot about the word transparency. So I wanted to talk about what we did do this year. First, our financials tells you exactly where we are on budget, including our liability, money still owed, to our legal action with OLC. Homeowners are invited to the monthly fireside chats, and you have kind of up close time with a board member. The other thing is the news you can use column that's been implemented in the Hilltop Pilots. So you know what the policies are the board approved at the previous board meeting. In addition to that, we also addressed the homeowners' comments that were brought up that weren't specific to a home. We continued Board Member of the Month to address your concerns between board meetings to ensure you are heard and that you are in the know. These are available to any homeowner at OCA. If a homeowner wants more, all they need to do is ask, and they need to have a realistic idea of how.
Okay, thanks Sandy. Lisa Baggett?
Yes, thank you. What I found most impressive was the fact that the community was able to negotiate themselves through the equalization process. Though not agreed by all, it's a step towards what I believe we all would like, and that is to get rid of our common area lease. And that was the first step in order to do that. I was involved in that committee. I also appreciate the Adopt-A-Spot and the Aladdin projects. These are places where we spend almost no money, but derive great benefit by seeing the beautification that this brings by very well, knowledgeable volunteers to beautify our community. And with that, I have great appreciation for the work they do. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Karen Bishop?
As a member of the current board, there are a lot of things that I'm really proud of that we accomplished. One additional thing to Sandy's is in terms of communication, we've really increased the e-blast, almost to the point where people are saying, hey, stop, you've got too much information now. So we're trying to move people to do as much digital communication as we can. I think the most important progressive step that we made was to get a management company. Our board, through the past 2 years, put in so many hours to try and bring management back to a level where the HOA could function. Over 6 years, it just deteriorated. And we're looking forward to First Service Residential. And I want to thank the volunteers. We had an excellent committee doing the community management search. And I think we came up with a quality company who can take care of our organization so that the board can be policymakers and the management company can manage. And I want to thank the volunteers through all the committees that have helped support the board throughout this year.
Thanks, Karen. Kelly Byrne?
I think this board and past boards have done a very good job in transparency. We, like Karen just mentioned, the e-blast and trying to get that information out there. However, it can also always improve. Another big thank you to Lee and Anita, because the YouTube videos are now guaranteed. If you can't be here today, you can still see what we get to say later on in your afternoon or when it's convenient to you. I think the new property management company was a decision in the right direction. And I know from being in a position where the general manager walked out or had to resign, that it's good to fall back on a property management team. I also want to give kudos to a new pickleball court and some new activities with new volunteers being out there and meeting the needs of this community. And again, I also echo thank you to all the volunteers.
Thanks, Kelly. Teresa?
I'm going to try to not repeat everything everybody said, because I believe in everything what everybody said. So I'm going to repeat the transparency issue, and that goes along with communication, and I love it, and I think there's more to do. I really appreciate the guts that these board members had to do in taking on tough issues. And I do appreciate that the current board and other boards are dedicated to trying to improve our community. Now, I may not agree with everything, but we do have the ability to mention those disagreements to our board members. And the CC&Rs, the updating that was done with those are good. The treasurer with the new style of financials are wonderful. I can understand them and they're easy to see and read. I appreciate the volunteers that we have in our community. And as the chair of the CC&R, the volunteers are just amazing and we have a lot of skills. And I think it's good that we mention the volunteers. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Teresa. Kurt Conant?
The equalization, without question, keeps us on the right path to be able to have high resale values on our properties. The other things that affect it are landscape maintenance, and the overall maintenance of the community. I think that the last board has done a very, very good job at finding the right vendors, putting the right vendors in the right place. Is it perfect? No. Took us a couple of swings in order to find a good landscaper. The landscape company that we've selected is going to make sweeping changes here. I spoke with him personally, and I owned a landscape company for years, so we were able to talk landscape for a while. He's here to help us to save water. He's also here to help to guide us to be experts in transitioning from turf to xeriscape and save water moving forward. So that and the other things that have been mentioned.
Kurt, that's your time.
The email especially, communication is so key.
Okay, thank you. Kathleen Dowling? Can you hear me?
Okay, well, yeah, I have to agree with all the other positive things that everybody has said about the board. I've never seen a board that has worked so hard and achieved so much, and that's going for the last few boards. I mean, it's incredible, and I hope Sandy is right in saying that she's laid the groundwork so that we don't have to do all that she did, because that would be really tough. Something that I really appreciate about the current board is the management company. I mean, I think we really have needed a management company, so I'm very glad we're here and we have them to fall back on. Along with the management company, I want to give a shout out to Lynn, because she is the one who's been watching our figures go back and forth between the management company. She's put in an abundance of hours, probably as much as a full-time job, to make sure that things didn't get lost in the crossover. I mean, they have our accounts now, so I appreciate you, Lynn. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathleen. Okay, next question. Candidates, what have you done to familiarize yourself with the Oceanside Land Company litigation? What have you done to familiarize yourself with the Oceanside Land Company litigation? And I'm going to draw another name out of the hat, please, to see who goes first. And it is, can you read it, please? Thank you. Lisa Baggett. Thanks, Donna. Okay, Lisa Baggett, you go first. The clock starts when you start talking.
Okay, thank you. This is a topic I'm very well familiar with. I started out, when I very first moved here, it was the first committee I joined, and that was the ad hoc committee on the land lease. As a real estate broker, I felt that's where I could bring my most expertise. In that process, I learned a lot about the community, the history, and since that time, I have been very involved in pushing forward equalization. with the goal, again, being to buy out our land lease and get rid of it. That's what will raise our values. In order to do that, we had to become equal for our attorneys. I also was involved in choosing of the attorneys that coming up with questions and answers. I'm very well versed in the legal timeline. I've read the last two packages that came out from the attorneys on the latest correspondence between the two sides. There's about 20 pages of legal that you can each read. It's available to you. I would suggest you do read it. And I look forward to seeing resolution.
Thank you, Lisa. Karen Bishop.
What I know about the Oceanside Land Company litigation, probably a lot more than I was hoping to, but being on the executive board and being privy to all the stages of the litigation has been very insightful. I have I have a summary of what I think about the litigation. It's on the back of my flyer in the auditorium, in the clubhouse lobby. So if you'd like to get my perspective on it, please read that. This litigation did not start with the board I was on. It started in 2021, 22 with the committees that you heard about. We're just taking the next stages as they go. And we study it a lot. We know every step of the litigation and what the attorneys are recommending. There's a prayer for relief. No matter what happens, we're hoping that at least some of the respites that we can have as homeowners will come true.
Thank you, Karen. Kelly Byrne.
Thank you for this question. I have been on the board since that time when the litigation started. I sat in on the mediation that began with the Oceanside Land Lease Company and OCA with our past attorney Teeple and Procopio law firms. Because I've been on the board, I've been able to stay on top of the executive sessions during the attorney-client privilege conversations. And as I'm sure Sandy will tell you, and John, presidents of the board have that conversation with the attorney first, and then get it to the executive board, and then we get it to the community on what we can say. And lots of times we can't say anything to the public until it is actually in the court system, which is what we're waiting for right now. March 22nd is the next court date. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Teresa Chamberlain Spradlin.
Well, there are 5 people running that are on the board or were on the board, and they are privileged to confidential information that the rest of us are not. So what I've done as a regular resident who has not been privileged to that information is I have read everything that's come out. And what I remember is the last 2 demurs that just came out. And I have read things that are available to us residents. And so I do have a strong opinion that we should take each step of the way because it's costly. And I know that litigation does cost money, but we need to be good stewards of that. So in terms of knowing more about this lawsuit, if I am elected, I will know more and then I can make a more educated decision with all your input. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Kurt Conant.
This is a hot topic. Everybody thinks about it. It is surprising how many people really don't know about it. I think that if I'm elected, I'm going to see to it that we have several meetings where we help to educate and be available to answer and ask any question regarding it in an open forum. Because there is so much to talk about where the benefits are to staying with the land lease argument. We have to settle this at some point. It's going to be compromised. We're not going to get everything that we want. They're not going to get everything that they want. We've invested a lot of money to get us to this point. Procopio is a fantastic law firm. Oftentimes, law firms this big, if they think that they're going to lose, they don't take a case like this. So I'm feeling confident to stay true to that. I've talked to a lot of experts here in.
Kurt, that's your time.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Kathleen Dowling?
Okay, hi, can you hear me? Okay, so what have I done? Let's see, last January, I started coming to every single board meeting asking for information. At least I wanted to know what this lawsuit was costing us. I don't think that that kind of information should have been secret or part of any strategy. I never got any answers, so in June and July, a few of us got together and we asked for permission to have a neighbor-to-neighbor meeting right here in the clubhouse. We had that meeting, we had over 100 people attend. We got petitions signed, and we actually, the board was put in a position where they had to have a special meeting to give us some information. And we did have their attorney here, and he did write a statement, and he gave us some answers that way. Another way I keep myself up with what's going on is I check the court site almost once a week.
That's your time. Thanks, Kathleen.
That's enough.
Thank you. Peggy Moore.
Thanks. Well, I've been in the room from the very beginning, and I have remained constant, consistent, and persevered through other members of the board that waffled at times. And we have ourselves in a position now with the top litigator in North County, San Diego, Procopio Law Firm. There's not just one attorney. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and the board has the truth, has the facts. We don't know the total cost, but there will be a resolve and there will be financial stability for the community going forward.
Thank you, Peggy. John Vogt.
As was stated, I was the chairman of the committee when we started on this process. We had 15 meetings over 15 months, so know a lot about those leases, and read so many of them, was involved in talking to the initial attorneys, and did find that the law says the landlord is responsible for the replacement of infrastructure when it is no longer workable. That was the basis of our initial approach. I commend the board for continuing. You'll recall that we had a survey of the membership whether the board should continue, and 86% of the people instructed to the board that they should continue to pursue this matter. We're talking about $1 million a year in lease money that's going to be there once this next increase goes in, and you can imagine we're talking about millions of dollars when we have to start replacing the roads and many of those other things.
Okay, thank you, John. Sandy Reiser.
Okay, I've done a lot to familiarize myself with this. As Kelly talked about, the president is the key point into the lawyers, and we communicate back and forth with the board. We have really tried to communicate with the homeowners, everything. You get these fun emails from me that have anything that's open to the public as much as we can. We were lucky with the special session that when we scheduled it just weeks before things went public, we could talk a lot more what we could before then. Our financials have always, for the past year, reflected exactly what we spent and how much we owed. That was a board position. I'm not a continue at any cost board member, so if that's what you're looking for, I'm not the one. You cannot assume that you're going to win. But at this point, we have chosen as a board to proceed, and I believe that's the right choice. But every step of the way, we have to evaluate that.
Thank you, Sandy. Thanks, everybody. Okay, the next question, we're staying with the issue of litigation. The question is, what are the risks and benefits of this litigation as it now stands? What are the risks and the benefits of this litigation as it now stands? And I'm going to ask someone new to take a name, please, out of the hat to see who goes first.
Karen Bishop.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, Karen Bishop, you're up first, and the clock will start when you start talking.
As I mentioned, I have a flyer outside in the lobby that talks about what we can gain from this litigation. If you read the cross-complaint that was filed on pages 36 to 37, it outlines what we could gain from this. They call it a prayer for relief. We could get the OLC to pay damages of nearly $3 million. We could have OLC pay for all future replacement costs. We could have them take down the lease payments to $15 per home for all 932 of us. We could have them cease charging us a cost of living increase of almost 25% every 10 years. We could have them do a restitution of 1 year's worth of lease payments of almost $700,000. We could have them pay the legal expenses. If we can have even one or two of these, we are going to be way ahead.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Kelly Byrne?
Risk and benefits of litigation. As someone who worked in law enforcement for 25 years, I can tell you the court is not a guaranteed thing. And it's scary to think of the risks. The benefits are huge, and if you read the court documents, we could come out so far ahead. We could get replacement costs, we could lower our lease, we could, have the attorney costs paid for. The problem with litigation, and I'm not against it, I'm just saying that there are risks to it, and we do have to look at the risks. What if we lose? Because it's not a sure thing. If we lose, then we're looking at reversing equalization. We're looking at possibly paying all the attorney costs, and we're also looking at still paying for our replacement cost. These are huge risks, but I've also been on the board that has looked at these risks very, very, very carefully, and have voted to go ahead because I think we have a good chance of getting the benefits that were very delicately put by Karen right now.
Thank you, Kelly. Teresa Chamberlain-Spradlin?
In reading the last demurrer, the thing that popped out in my mind was that the statute of limitations have run out for our community to go after relief from the OLC. And if I might have missed something, but to me that's the big one. On March 24th, the judge is going to say, yes, we got to throw it out because it is past statute of limitations, and that goes back to the 83 and 84 lawsuit that we have. Now the risks for benefits is money, and the risks for the bad stuff is money, because, oh my gosh. So I'm sorry, I'm getting frustrated here. So the benefits will help all of us, and the risk, the negative, will also, we all have to suffer with those too.
Thank you, Teresa. Kurt Conant?
OLC has made a fortune with the land lease that they have here. When I moved in here, I was aware of it, and I did a lot of reading and research. My wife worked for a real estate attorney for 16 years, so I made it my point to at least understand it. I think we're making all the right decisions, and for all the reasons mentioned, there's a huge upside. Is there a downside? Yes. Do we think it's a good risk? We wouldn't be doing what we're doing if we didn't think that it was a good risk. In terms of how, parading the horribles is one way to look at it, but the other is there's somewhere between zero and what we're doing now that it is the answer. So it's a matter of compromise, as all court cases typically are. So 85% of them get settled, and I'm anticipating that they will. All the benefits, I think we know. The downside, we know as well. I don't believe that'll happen.
Thank you, Kurt. Kathleen Dowling?
Okay, thank you. I'm going to agree with you right off the bat about the settlement would probably be a really nice thing. Everybody's talking about the benefits, so I don't think I need to go into that. What has bothered me is that nobody has really discussed a plan B. We can conjure up the risks, okay, but what are we going to do about it? Nobody's really discussed that, and I think that needs to, depending on what happens at the end of March, I think that needs to come full circle. Procopio could end up owning this property. He can put a lien on it at any time that we can't give him the money that we owe him. We could end up getting countersued by the Oceanside Land Company. I mean, there's a lot of potential downside. And I think that we're kind of, I don't know, we're looking the wrong direction if we don't think about this. Although I remain hopeful. I'm glad there was a special assessment, because that saves a little bit of our reserves, but
Thank you, Kathleen. Peggy Moore?
I think that the greatest risks in the litigation is the misinformation campaign that goes on in this community. We have the top litigators in North County, San Diego, and they have said to us, there are no guarantees. They've been right up front with us. They cannot tell us the exact cost, but they gave us an estimate, and we've been up front with the community around that. I was in the room with the mediator and the Oceanside Land Company, and to the surprise of the mediator, professional mediator, they didn't say no to the 6 points we came up with. That's a plus. As far as the statute of limitations, we've gone back 4 years to recoup replacement costs. That is well within the statute of limitations. So we don't read too much into this demurrer that's coming in March 22nd.
Thanks, Peggy, that's your time. Thank you. John Vogt?
Everybody's correctly said there's always a risk because you can lose. But there are tremendous benefits if we were to win. I wouldn't have any reason to repeat what's been said, but I would point one other thing out. We tried this 40 years ago. It didn't go well, and 40 years have passed. We're in the middle of it now, and it's probably the only time we're going to have to find a resolve legally in our lifetime. If this gets settled one way or the other, that's pretty well the way it's going to be for the rest of our time here. There's 49 or 45 years yet on that lease. Do we want to live with that hanging over our head for another 45 years? At this point, we simply have to stay the course, follow the best advice we can, but not give up.
Thank you, John. Sandy Reiser?
So I just want to talk about a couple of things that haven't been talked about. So the statute of limitations is mentioned in the demurrers. If you want to know more about that, that is old law. There's been new laws since then, and our lawyer talked about that at the session that we had here, and how we have a position going forward. The court is going to decide how we go, and that's how we're going to choose what to do. So we can plan for every scenario under the sun, but until we hear what the judge is going to do, we don't actually know how to react to that. The end of March is whether or not the judge wants to dismiss the cross complaint or not, March 22nd. So we're at that point, if he dismisses the cross complaint, that's a whole other ballgame from going forward. And OLC has been defiant after mediation and to this day, but they're going nowhere. Read the demurrer, you will see it. It's the same thing that they've said forever. They said it after mediation, they say it now. They're defiant, and I think we need to be too until we see what happens March 22nd.
Thank you, Sandy. Lisa Baggett?
Yes, I love this topic. We do have great risk here. Anytime you spend a significant amount of the homeowner's money that could be lost, that's a great risk. So that is of high concern, I believe, to all of us. However, as everyone's mentioned, I believe the benefits outweigh the risk at this point in time, and that clock ticking for the next 45 years, it's important that we attempt to do this now. The benefits, you know, to be able to fix our infrastructure, not have those costs. The opportunity to buy out our lease, that is fantastic. And also to reduce to $15 for all of us every month if we keep the lease. Those would be wonderful things, and I believe those are attainable. Just as an aside, Procopio and Savage, Robbie Savage was my old next door neighbor, and I do believe we are in good hands. I had nothing to do with the choosing of Procopio. I didn't even know they were one of our choices. So I feel we're in good hands there just for those reasons. As far as the other things...
Lisa, that's your time.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you. 1 minute goes fast. Goes real fast. Okay, the next question is, what are your main concerns regarding our budget? What are your main concerns regarding our budget? And I'll have someone new draw a name out of the hat to see who goes first.
That's not fair.
Kathleen Dowling.
Thank you, thank you. Kathleen Dowling, you go first, and the clock will start ticking when you start talking.
All right. Well, the main concerns regarding the budget is there's not enough money. How's that for a start? I think that the reserve fund has been robbed for litigation costs the last 2 years. And now we're faced with, okay, we have roads in several units that are actually falling apart. They need to be fixed, and we're faced with the tough choices of which ones we're going to repair and which ones we're going to gamble on letting them go. And I think the operational budget has also gone up, and so we have to make up some way to deal with that as well. So that's my main concern, is the reserve, that we don't have enough money in reserves. And unfortunately, that's probably going to mean that our dues are going to go up again next year because we can't do everything we need this year or even next year with what we have right now.
Okay. Thank you, Kathleen. Peggy Moore.
When I first got on the board, we were 6 years in deficit spending. And we've turned that around in the last 2 years with a lot of hard work. We need to manage the budget. There is enough money. There's never enough money to do everything, but there is enough money to manage this budget. But there's also a lot of waste. When we have sprinklers going on in the middle of a rainstorm for 2 weeks, that is homeowner money being wasted. We need to manage how our funds are being spent, the maintenance agreements, the waste that goes on in some of the agreements, and unaccountability to by some of the vendors, is your homeowner money down the drain. So it needs to be managed carefully, and that is my biggest concern. But we're doing a good job so far.
Thank you, Peggy. John Vogt.
Obviously, one concern is that our place remains affordable for our people to live here, that we can all continue to live here. Part of that is making sure we get good value for the money we spend, that we get what we're paying for when we deal with the contractors and people like that. But we also are going to have to face the reality that we have to invest in order to maintain. We don't want to turn this into a geriatric ghetto or a senior slum. We're going to have to continue to find the money necessary to maintain our place and keep it that pleasant, affordable place that we all envisioned when we decided to retire here.
Thank you, John. Sandy Reiser.
So board directors are the fiduciaries of the community. It is their #1 responsibility, and they must be objective and not make decisions for their own personal interests, but decisions that are right for the entire community. This is often hard, but completely necessary. The board this year did raise the assessment due to operating costs, and here's why. For the previous boards did not raise the assessment for an association that covered 140 acres of property, is over 60 years old, has a paltry 9% reserve fund in case of large emergency projects, and has a huge land lease payment every single month with no end in sight. It is not realistic to think that we cannot raise the assessment. But this is something you should know. If previous boards the past 10 years have just raised it 5%, we would have $8 million more in the bank. We'd have $8 million more, and our current assessment would be about $500.
Thank you, Sandy. Lisa Baggett.
Thank you. I love numbers, and I like to get in there and figure out what we can do with them. One of the things that I know that we have done is we had an insurance loss of $1 million. We should have fought harder on that. We should have never lost that. But in fact, we did. And each of us is paying $40 more a month due to the loss of that lawsuit. That's why your dues went up. That's the reality. We cannot have this. We need to save money, and we do that by saving our water, our second largest bill on our financial budget. The next thing is we've made very poor choices in some of our vendors. The vendors were running us, not us running the vendors. That has to stop. We are the boss of them. It's our money. We do what's in our best interest, not the vendors. And also, some of the reserves have been misspent over time. I want to make sure that we keep an eye on keeping our reserves and accounting for them in the proper manner. and also the special assessment. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Karen Bishop?
I have two shout outs. One is to Lynn Lazinski, who has been our treasurer this year. And she is holding us totally accountable for every financial decision we make. There's not a motion that comes before this board where Lynn doesn't say, and where is it coming from? What GL is it? I also, and all the work that she's done in working with First Service Residential. It's not been easy transitioning from a self-managed organization for 6 years into a management company. I also want to thank the management company. So when Peggy's mentioning waste and Lisa's mentioning vendors, that is one of the main reasons we went to a management company. Rather than have the same old people showing up to do the same old jobs, they give us a list of vendors, they vet the vendors, and then they present the proposals to us. And then they make sure that the contracts are realistic, and we hold them accountable for the work they're doing. So that is happening, and thanks to the management company.
Thank you, Karen. Kelly Byrne?
Main concerns about the budget. We have always had money coming in, and how we manage that money is extremely important. And as it has been stated, the board is the final look at that. Big shout out to all of our treasurers who have taken this on, and especially Lynn this year. It's been a big job, but at the same time, when I hear someone say that insurance claims should not have gone that way, they haven't been there. And I'm not saying that to criticize Lisa, I'm just saying that information has to get out to the community that you are responsible for some of these claims. We need to make sure that if there's a trip and fall hazard, let's get it fixed. Put in that work order, come together with it. And I give credit to the new facilities committee, but we still need to do more. And as being someone who fought against that insurance claim, I can tell you, we did try to fight against it, and unfortunately, it was what it was. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. Teresa Chamberlain-Spraglin?
The question is, what are my main concerns regarding our budget? And I'll go back to my property value. My main concern is infrastructure. We need to maintain the integrity of our stucco. There are tough choices with these finances, and I want to be able to afford to live here. Now I know the dues will have to be raised in the future to help make sure we can cover these costs. However, I do think that if we look at our homes of being, let's say, around $500,000, are you willing to put 1%, 2% aside for repairs? Like me as a homeowner, I have to save up for that new roof. So I know that I'm being simplistic in this answer, but there are hard choices that I don't think we average residents have been privileged to. And in terms of the new transparency, put it in language that's simple to look at and simple to read.
Thank you, Teresa. Kurt Conant?
Main concerns regarding the budget, I have to say, I agree with all that's been said, and hats off to both Lynn and Peggy for taking on just an incredible amount of responsibility for our finances. I really appreciate it. We have plenty of money. It's how you spend it. Budgets generally come back to how are you spending your money. And I can bring some expertise to the table because I know how to write contracts and I know how to enforce contracts. Somebody said earlier regarding the contracts being enforced and us telling the vendors what we want them to do. I think that we're kind of letting them run their own show, looking at the way that the landscape was done in the past years. Wasn't focused. I trimmed my bushes, I've cut my own lawn, I've trimmed my neighbor's hedges, and I'm looking forward to that not happening. So savings on vendors is how we fix the budget. Saving on water is how we fix the budget.
Thank you, Kurt. Okay, next question. What are the pros and cons of converting common area turf to drought-tolerant xeriscape? What are the pros and cons of converting common area turf to drought-tolerant xeriscape? And we'll ask Jay to draw a name out of the hat to see who goes first.
Teresa Sprague.
Thank you, thank you. Teresa, you go first. The clock starts ticking when you start talking.
One of the main cons about converting everything to drought-resistant plants is our slopes. We have to have plants that roots can go deep to keep the slope there, and they require maybe more water than a succulent. The other thing is that diversity in the landscape, I think, will keep the integrity of the beauty of this community. And the issue of the water and the utilities that we have going on, we're going to have to look at the cost of our water. It's going to go up in 3 years, a total of 18%. Just like the electricity is going up percentages, just like the garbage has gone up. So all those factors into what kind of materials we have here as our common area vegetation is important. And we want to also look at the fact if we have too much of a certain rock or whatever, may hold too much heat in the ground, and too much water spent is not good.
Thank you, Teresa. Kurt Conant?
Love this topic. These are hard decisions. This is what you have to do. It's a changing world, it's a changing climate, and here we are. So, rained an awful lot. We learned about slopes. We learned about erosion in this last little training through Mother Nature. It has to be a responsible conversion, and that's where our new landscaper is going to help us out. I talked to him specifically about this. He says he thinks he could save 10 to 15% or more on our current water bill very quickly, and he understands the process of the conversion to xeriscape. That conversion process, there's a rebate available. It's still available. He knows the ins and outs of how to get that done. So I'm happy to see the water savings more than anything else, because to me, it's just money laying on the table. This 18, 17, 20% increase, I think he's going to save us so much money, it's not going to even make an impact.
Thank you, Kurt. Kathleen Dowling?
Okay, so the pros and cons of converting common area turf to drought tolerant xeriscape. So just to bring us all up to date, xeriscape is any landscaping or gardening that reduces or eliminates the need for irrigation. Okay, so that can be rocks, that can be trees, that can be succulents, that can be native plants. All require different design skills, all require a different way to deliver the water. The pros are, is I'm really positive and hopeful that there's so much that we can do that we don't need a landscaper, we just need volunteers. Adopt a Spot program, Aladdin projects are two examples of things that we can do without having to get more money in the door or spend money to get money. The risks are, or the cons are, we don't know what we're doing exactly, and I think that we need to go to school.
Thank you, Kathleen.
You're welcome.
Peggy Moore?
I'm not a landscaper. I think the pros of looking at this issue is listening to the homeowners and what they want as well. And finding balance between green and concrete or rocks or drought tolerant. And there can be a balance. We need to hire the right professionals to take this on. But I think the biggest issue is facing us is listening to our homeowners in what they want, what their concerns are, both the pros and the cons.
Thank you, Peggy. John Vogt?
The pro, obviously, is we save some money if we do manage to reduce the water consumption, and probably obey the law, since it seems like the laws are going to become stricter and stricter on the use of water and putting definite restrictions on our traditional way of watering. The con, of course, is we all would like nice plush green grass and lots of nice flowers. The one thing that we do have, though, there's a reference to, and that is the new member handbook encourages our members to step up and do some of their own landscaping. Step up and plant some annuals in your front yard, make some flower, put a little color there. Go out and trim your own bushes, light landscaping. The new member handbook even says you can hire your own contractor and have him go out and redo your yard and things like that. There's lots of options there that aren't said too much. You have to get permission, you have to go through the landscape committee, but the handbook opens up a lot of options for us individually.
Thank you, John. Sandy Reiser?
So I lived in Tucson, Arizona for 15 years, so I know all about xeriscaping. You could not actually have grass in your yard there. You could not have it. But you still needed a landscaper, just so everybody knows. I happen to live in a xeriscape yard here in the community. I'm one of the few. The ones across the street from me have grass. It's a giant saver for us as a community if we go to xeriscaping. And there's a new approach to slopes. We don't have to have the kind of thing that we have with slopes. Go and see some of the things the city has done around there. It's great. The con of that is that it costs a lot of money to go to xeriscape. And I think the biggest thing is changing the mental view with homeowners. One of our homeowners told me once, and I love this, he said, you know, we act like we live in Connecticut versus that we live in a desert. And that's so true because we live in a desert. And so if we can acclimate ourselves to that, then we can actually make huge changes here and save a ton of money at the same time.
Thank you, Sandy. Lisa Baggett?
Yes, thank you. In this topic, I've been very involved in this. I chaired the strategic planning, and what we discovered was that water was our biggest problem here that we could do something about as homeowners. At that point, that was turned into an ad hoc committee. The board handles the strategic planning. The ad hoc committee had 38 volunteers to go out and do a variety of ways that we could remediate the water. But mainly what I want to see is this thing be homeowner driven, not driven by the vendor, the new vendor, no. The homeowner picks, gives us input if they would like to see conversion in their area or if they don't. On a map, we can see this, we can identify, we can target, we can act. And we do this in conjunction with the new landscape company. I was on the bid committee. They are by far the best one. They will work with us to use our plants to reduce cost. They will work with us to use rebates to reduce our cost. And I believe that 17% reduction is doable. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Karen Bishop?
I encourage you to read my candidate statement because this is my biggest frustration. There was an ad hoc committee this year on this board to work on common area. Roxanne and Peter and I spent many months, a lot of research, and made a lot of proposals. And what we wanted to propose is that homeowners could have some say into their homes. So far, we're still working with committees to set up the process, to set up the procedures, to set up the guidelines so that we can do that as homeowners. We're running into roadblocks with committees saying, it's our opinion that homeowners should not modify the common area in any way. And then committees having people go back and forth between landscape and architecture. We need to have that solved. I don't know how you can xeriscape when you have that kind of attitude, or then who do you go to? Which committee takes care of it? Which one will have the foresight to help homeowners get through this process and make sure that we can all do it legally?
Thanks, Karen. Kelly Byrne?
So if we paved all of Oceana, we would have room for more parking of cars, more RVs, and possibly even more pickleball courts. Just to say. But look, this isn't a simple question. I certainly do not come from a landscaping background. And my belief is no one can answer this question, even if they are a landscaper. Look, the community and the board and the property management company have to work on this and talk it out and really come up with a plan to get the best bang for the buck.
Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. That was the end. Wow, Kelly went so fast. Okay, next question. What do you see as the strengths and weaknesses of the current communication between the board and the community? What do you see as the strengths and weaknesses of the current communication between the board and the community? And I'll ask you to draw a name out of the hat to see who goes first.
Kurt.
Thank you. All right, Kurt Conant, you go first.
Odds are I was going to be next. So. What do I see as the strengths and weaknesses of the current communication between the board and the community? I think we're bridging the gap. I think we've done a great job, and the fact that we have Zoom and we have this media that's being captured, I think is probably the biggest step in the right direction. I'm a big technology guy, so having to like win the time and day lottery to show up for live events is just, it's too much to ask and to have people have to attend in order to get the information. I feel like we should have a lot of this information online where people have distilled it and they're like reporting on it. It's people's opinions. The strength, the email blasts are fantastic. I'm sending out some emails. You guys have probably received one or two from me. I think it's the best way to communicate. I see us also putting together text lists for people and also email lists for people. If you want to know everything dog park, get on the dog park list. If you want to know everything art, get on the art list. If you want to know about the wood shop, call Mark Mann.
Okay, thank you, Kurt. Kathleen Dowling?
Okay, strengths and weaknesses of the current communication. Okay, well, I think the board shows up on time for their meetings, and they're pretty cogent. I mean, I can understand what they're saying. When you get up, and one thing I would say as a feedback is sometimes when you get up and you ask a question, they're not obligated to return your question or answer you, and often they don't answer mine. I mean, I'm just totally ignored. But one of the other weaknesses I see is that meetings are way too long. I think it's really disrespectful to expect an association community to come to a meeting and sit here for 4 to 5 hours. Do the research. We can do a good meeting in 2 hours. And if we don't, then our agenda is probably too long. And that's something I would absolutely strive for if elected to the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Peggy Moore?
This is a tough one for me. I think we've made great strides over the last few years. It's humbling to be on a board and to do your darndest to get the communication through to the community. We have a lot of shut-ins. We have a lot of people who are not on the internet. We have to communicate better with them. And again, I concur with Kathleen that multiple executive and general meetings in a month, lasting 6 to 8 hours, use of emergency meetings for non-emergency issues. And I think we can do better. We can always do better. So we need to listen more to the homeowners and act on some of the comments and suggestions that you bring to us.
Thank you, Peggy. John Vogt?
I think the recent boards have done a real good job of trying to communicating in more ways. I think that fireside chat, I hope some people are coming to it, because I think that's a neat idea. We didn't have that when I was on the board, and I would have looked forward to having an opportunity once a month or so to sit down and just talk to people who were interested or had questions. So I think that was a good deal. Con, however, is, first of all, I think often they're too long. Those email messages, the Friday blast, I think that's just way too long, and I don't think people read it. I guess I don't always read it. The other thing is, we still have so many people that don't use the internet, so we're still got a bunch of people that are kind of left out. Hilltop Highlights is great, but have you really tried to poll people how many people actually have read it? And again, the sad thing is so often that they haven't read it. It's there, the information's there, but how do you get people to read it? That'll be part of the challenge.
Okay, thank you, John. Sandy Reiser?
I got a lot to say, so I'm going to say it fast, okay? So we created the hub last year in the board. This is our communications committee, and it's made a huge difference. The feedback we've gotten on the highlights has been excellent. People say it actually says what they want to do. Wait till you see the one that's coming. 90% of our homeowners have email and get email from us, 90%. It's not the number we all think it is. So we did some research to find that out. So we do definitely have people we have to get to. That's why the highlights is there as well. Why are the meetings too long? Because the board cares. Everybody gets a chance to say something. We don't cut people off. If we didn't have so many challenges, they would go shorter. Would we like them to be shorter? Oh, please, yes. We would definitely like them to be shorter. And the other thing I want to say is that we actually do respond to the homeowner comments, not in homeowner comments at the board meeting. We're not supposed to answer during that time. But if it's something that we can do something about, we actually do it. We put it in the highlights, we call the homeowner. And by the way, Karen and I have our phone numbers in the highlights that people call us all the time. So, thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. Lisa Baggett?
Yes, thank you. On the communications, yeah, I'm a firm believer in all the things that the past boards have added, the hub, the Zoom, the fireside, highlights, key blast. I'm for all of that. The downside of this are the lengths of the meetings. You know, in architecture, we run our meeting exactly 1 hour. If we don't get it done, it gets tabled. That's how it's done in corporate America. This is a business. That's how it should be done. I'm not a believer in having secretive executive meetings that go on for hours and hours. Those are not open to the community. We have no idea what's going on in there. I feel that there are personal agendas going on, witch hunts, tribunals. Who knows what goes on in these executive sessions? I'd like to see them truncated down to no more than 2 hours. If it can't be done, move it. I agree, the agenda's too long if you can't accomplish these things. We can hear from homeowners in many of these other positive ways that have been suggested, and reaching out to the shut-ins is very important to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Karen Bishop?
Length of the meetings. I don't think there's any of the 7 of us that like to sit there for hours and hours. But we've had a lot of work to do because we did not have a management company. Our meetings are getting shorter. We're doing less management work and more policy work. The one area that I think that I'm disappointed we haven't installed yet is an emergency alert system in terms of communicating to our homeowners if a situation comes up for an evacuation, emergency water shutoff. That was something that was brought up by the board in the previous 2 years since I've been here, and we haven't made any progress with that. I'm sure that'll be something Kelly will want to work on so that we can alert you when we need to.
Thank you, Karen. Kelly Byrne?
Wow, that's moving right in. We actually did have a reverse 911 system that we need to try again because the first systems failed. I think the board now and previously has done a great job adding to things that some of us have already said. Fireside chat, website, e-blast, the town halls, we've had those on critical incidents. But here's what I've noticed. When there is free food and drink, people come. And so if you have, if we have town halls, if we have a poolside chat, or if we're out by the different units and we bring a couple of beverages and maybe even a few, finger foods, people come, and then you have a community feeling and a community communication that you can really talk and people benefit from. Board meetings are just that. They're board meetings, and sometimes they go the length they go. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Teresa Chamberlain-Spradlin.
It's Chamberlain Sprad.
Sorry.
Sorry, that's okay. So that's a communication. We all heard the strengths, and I just want to talk about some ideas to improve. I think that a lot of residents like myself, we've been disengaged from board meetings because of the length and trying to figure out what's going on. And there is a lot of stuff we have to do on the board for the community. And I think that we could try shorter board meetings for the actual items that for the community to hear about what we're trying to do, and then have a town hall where we would present the residents' concerns. And if we get a routine of these style of communications going, people, I'm sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied. Us average residents will come to trust the process better if we know what's going on, and that's part of the transparency. And everything's fluid. Everything for improvement is fluid. We build upon what has worked, and looking at what could be improved upon is part of the board's too.
Okay, thank you, Teresa. Okay, next question. Do you think it is possible / realistic to avoid yearly increases in monthly HOA fees? Why or why not? Do you think it is possible / realistic to avoid yearly increases in monthly HOA fees? Why or why not? Okay, this is the last time we'll have to do this. Can you please draw a name out of the hat to see who goes first?
Kelly Harper. Kelly.
Kelly Byrne.
Thank you, Kelly Harper.
All right. Kelly Byrne, you get to go first.
Starting now.
Starting now.
Okay. Do you think it is possible, realistic, to avoid yearly increases in monthly HOA fees? No, unfortunately, because we haven't since I've lived here. And as some people will say, sometimes the fees don't necessarily go for operating cost. Sometimes they have to go for insurance costs. And I would really be surprised if there's anybody in this room who can say that their insurance, both on their car or their home, has not gone up. Insurance costs have gone up, so it comes back to the HOA. And if we're going to raise your assessment to cover that insurance, say by $35 a month, and then we're also going to try and cover operating costs, it does keep going up. Now, can we be more fiscally responsible? Sure. That's what the board tries to do at their very, very best. And you know what? Maybe we can have a fundraiser and put a black and white for sale and just take that money in. You know, there's things we can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Teresa Chamberlain Spradlin. You're welcome.
You gotta have levity. No, none of us wants to pay more money for anything, but what is realistic is we have to look at what needs to be done. We've had reports about the infrastructure and the reserves on where we should reserve and how much and where to put it. And I don't think that we've done ugly. I don't think that that kind of information has gone out to the residents so that we know what are the choices, what's going on with those choices. And unfortunately, I think they're going to have to go up depending upon what our legal issues have been. And I think they're going to have to go up because the infrastructure, if we don't win the lawsuits, we have to fix something. We have to make sure the stucco doesn't fall apart. We have to make sure that the pipes are repaired. We got to stop doing Band-Aids. We've been doing Band-Aids to save money instead of buying the part to repair it that will last 10, 20, 30 years. So I think that better fiscal management of what's realistic is needed. We need to listen to the committees.
Thank you, Teresa. Kurt Conant.
HOA fees, never paid them before I got here. I refused to be in an HOA. My dad said, if you're in an HOA, son, you better get on the board of directors. So here I am. I think it's about money management. I think it's about being able to project into the future what the needs are going to be. We're at a crossroads where if we don't act on things that need to be repaired in real time, you know, if this lawsuit drags on, we're going to have to start fixing stuff and paying for it ourselves. So I don't believe that it's realistic that they remain the same. I do think that we have a lot of work to do in order to be able to say we want to try to go maybe a year without raising them. The thing that I don't want to see happen is a $1,200 surprise come out of one board of directors meeting. I would hate for that to happen while I'm on the board of directors, and that's what we all got this year.
Thank you, Kurt. Kathleen Dowling.
Okay, well, we could avoid yearly increases in monthly HOA fees if we win part or even some of a lawsuit against OLC. That's one way, and from what I've heard from everybody sitting around me, they're pretty sure that's just what's going to happen. So, go team. There's other ways possibly to avoid increase, and that's to find an angel investor. Several years ago, John brought up some program where people could leave an endowment to the association. There's always that. Besides that, I think, yeah, we need to have 5% a year probably, just to keep up with. And I think people should just go with that and know that that's probably what's going to happen. Thanks.
Thank you, Kathleen. Peggy Moore?
Don't believe it when you hear that the assessments have not gone up over the years. Since I've been here, I bought in 2006, my assessments have doubled. So I think there's quite a few of us that still live here that have experienced that. It's inevitable that the fees are going to increase. Most of it is out of our control. Insurance in California, they're dropping us. It's very difficult, as we've seen, to get good liability insurance that we're required to carry. The land lease is a big part of what will go up starting 2026. It will escalate again, so we need to find the resolve before that. And to manage our monies better.
Thank you, Peggy. John Vogt?
Is it possible to avoid yearly increases? No. We all understand inflation, and that affects us in many different places. I'm kind of impressed with the bravery of the current board. I got almost lynched when we raised the assessment $25 one year. So I commend you for your bravery. One thing that might be a little helpful though is that, and maybe it's already out there, but at least once a year in a very simple article, actually show how that money is spent. $30 goes to Cox, so and so much goes to insurance, and just actually let people understand how much or what their monthly assessment actually is covering, and what things we have, how much goes for water, how much goes for electricity. Put it in a simple little chart.
Thanks, John, I did that. We had line item of the week for several months. I didn't get one email, one comment, one anything. Each time I took a line item and explained in a whole page exactly what it went for and what it was doing. So I don't know. As far as it being a surprise about the assessment, Lynn started in June. She worked with management. We had numerous budget committees, finance committees, and community town halls. It was a really hard cycle this year. We had aging infrastructure. We had substantial increase in things like your utilities, and we have no control of that. And of course, we continue to have this land lease that we have to continue to pay. The actual amount needed was over $100 a month per home. That was the actual amount we needed just to get by. But the homeowner feedback that we got was no way, no how. And so the budget and finance committee were able to get that down 40%. And as we noted at the time, that puts us at risk. We are at risk because we did that. And we're hoping not to have to send that $1,600 bill that Kurt talked about. But we did hear the homeowners loud and clear on this. But it's not realistic to think that we're not going to go up. We did years like that, and this is what it cost us, $8 million.
Thank you, Sandy. Lisa Baggett?
Yes, thank you. Okay, so on this, I also agree that we are stuck with increasing HOA dues. How much is the question? My old HOA, I was there 20 years. In that 20 years, we went from 120 to 140. Our grounds were larger, our homes were bigger. There's no excuse for this. The reason we did that is that we had a board that sat and went through every line item every month. We went to vendors, we did all kinds of things so that we could keep that money down. And that is my #1 goal here.
Yes.
The other thing that I want to talk about is how do we slash the costs? Well, there's many ways to do it. One way is to stop micromanaging some of the committees. The other way is to break down of the dues would be most helpful. The fact that we lost our landscaping last year suddenly was an atrocity. That should never happen again. That was something promised to me. I paid for it. It was paid for and not delivered. This cannot go on. We could find offsets.
Thank you, Lisa. Karen Bishop?
The cost to run the organization comes from the operating funds. And it's not true that the operating funds increased every year. I'm looking at the history of operating costs. Over an 8-year period, operating costs went up 5%. That's not 5% per year, it's 5% over 8 years, while the cost of living went up 20%. You cannot operate that way. And previous boards didn't want to raise it. Thank you, John, for giving us kudos for being brave enough to do it. We had no choice. Thank you, Kelly, for mentioning The association does have a nonprofit now, thanks to my husband, who started the Oceana Good Neighbor Fund. We're working with the CRC. Next week, we're meeting with them to see how we can make a connection to help residents. And we worked with Lisa Baggett when there was a grant available. More grants can come our way. We now have a nonprofit to use.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, phew, we are flying through. We're going to end early. And so, just when they've gotten used to 1 minute, now we're going to give them 2 for this last question. It's a little more open-ended. Anyway, so, and there's only one name left in the hat, and it's Sandy Reiser, so I don't even need to get out to see who it is. So, the last question is this. What features of daily life in Oceana do the residents want you and need you to protect, support, and maintain, or even add to? What features of daily life in Oceana do the residents want you and need you to protect, support, and maintain, or even add to? Again, you have 2 minutes for this one. So the 2-minute timer starts when Sandy starts talking.
Okay.
Like I said, there's advantages and disadvantages to going first.
So, I think I want to say on this is that change is hard, and we've had a lot of it as an association. I want the association to continue to move forward and help members Evelyn, Lynn, and Roxanne in their second year continue the work that we actually started. So I think we can do that, and I think we can affect daily lives by finding a solution to the grip the land lease has on us that's essential to every single thing that we do. Build a real sense of community by listening to the homeowners. We've started that. We built on last year's board. We need to continue to do that. We need to address our reserves and deferred maintenance issues. Every one of you emails and calls me all the time about those things that come up, and all of them. And it's purely money. It's not smart, it's money. So we have to do it smarter, and we have to put the money in the right place. And I believe by hiring First Service that they're gonna give us the ability to do it. They've shown that. We have to continue to tell you the truth, even when it hurts, and that's what we're trying to do. And I think we have to complete our transition to First Service, because that's really important to this being successful, and we're working on that. And the last thing I like to say is that I believe that we implement big ideas using my theory of crawl, walk, run. You can't start with running, or you're going to fail.
Thank you, Sandy. Lisa Baggett, you're next. 2 minutes.
Thank you. Yes. Number 1 for me, as I've mentioned before, is saving water to save that 17% increase. I do believe it can be done. But we need to get on top of this now and stop the talk, and let's get in action. We've got 38 volunteers willing to help do this, along with our garden company and our new landscape vendor. We can also get the rebates there. I'd like to see the maintenance of our committees continue. We've got fabulous people on our committees. They help us save a lot of money by doing a lot of the work that benefits all of us. I would like to also protect our infrastructure, particularly in our common areas. I am dead set against infringing into the common area, particularly while we are in a lawsuit about the common area. One downside of that is if our landlord gets word that we're infringing into common areas, that could come back to bite us. Not just bite us on that thing you just tried to patio, you tried to put on the slope. No, they could go back the full 50 years and have us pull out anything in a common area. We must proceed with caution. Our slopes are ready to give way at any moment's notice. With this rain, we've seen it here ourselves. We cannot have this. And by putting extra items on our common area, puts us at extreme risk of collapse of those slopes, which is one of our most expensive and riskiest things we have while living here in a community that's now over 50 years old. And we are in this land lease supposedly for another, 50 years of that. So we must protect our slopes and our infrastructure. And we do that by not putting additional strain on these. Yes, we'd all like to build a patio outside of our house. That's common area, so thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Karen Bishop.
In anticipation of the next 25 years of sitting in my living room and looking out the back. There's a little strip of land there that nobody walks on, but it's the aesthetics that I look forward to look at, see the slope, the little hedges, the bunnies. But there's a lot of danger out there as well. When I look at my property, the front lawn goes like this. I had such extreme flooding that I had to replace my garage door. I looked for the association to help me, HOA, I looked for the landscape committee to help me, and I got bounced back and forth. So what I need to do for the features of daily life is to make it easy for a homeowner to be able to figure out how they can make their life easier, how they can make their home safer, how they can add to the value of their home. Lisa mentions common area. Every inch of grass outside your footprint is common area. So when you want to close down any work on common area, that means that your ability to improve the look of your home, the safety of your home, and the use of your home is cut down. So we need to moderate that. This board has given the committees the authority to approve or disapprove any project if it's reasonable, if it saves the property, if it increases the livability of it. That's what we need for our daily life. We need to make sure that the grounds are safe for us to walk around. We need to make sure that people can enjoy the common area clubhouse, the rooms in here, that they're safe, they are warm enough for you when you want to come in and do an activity, and that will improve our daily life.
Thank you, Karen. Kelly Byrne.
Features of daily life. If you elect me to the board, I need you to know that I'm very supportive and I feel it's very important to maintain the California Civil Code, which is known as Davis-Sterling, which supports our governing documents. This is important because as we go forward to make changes within the common area, whether it's by a committee or from a board or if it's within our governing documents, we have to change these governing documents first. That is a membership vote. We change CC&Rs by membership votes. Once we do that in cooperation with the California Civil Code, we can start looking at some of these changes to beautify the areas that are in or around our house. There are different forms that the last board has worked on in cooperation with legal to make indemnity forms, and then the form, I never get it right, release form that is also notarized. This assists with the land lease. However, we've got to do this by the letter, and that is the important information that I feel you would want me to support and maintain if elected. Now, the other word that I left out here is protect, and that is my expertise. I feel that one of the things we have to do to protect is we need to look at the lighting around this community. We need to be in cooperation with the OPD and OFD. I'm currently a commissioner with the city with these two departments, and I can tell you right now there are so many features in communication that we should be knowledgeable about. One of them is working with our sector officer. There's really 2 units that have a good neighborhood watch program in communication with OPD. We need to expand on that, and we certainly need to work on the EVAC program, and we need every person in this community to have their own personal knowledge of what they need to do to prepare for such an emergency, and we have that information. We need to get it to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Teresa Chamberlain Spradlin.
Thank you. Now I'm going to go back to the simplicity part of this question. What do the residents want you and need you to do? And I'm a member of the dog walking club, and as I've been out and about, I've listened to residents and their perception of what the board does, or their perception of the value that the board, is the board listening to them, or are we being realistic with our communication? And the style appears to be that they do whatever they want. There's a style that appears to be that they're not really working for the residents. And there's another style that how could we improve this communication? when I first came here, I thought, oh boy, I don't have to pay garbage. Oh boy, I don't have to mow the lawn. Oh boy, I don't have to do this. And as those things come up, as stucco is breached, then, oh, I go to the HOA to fix the stucco because that was in my agreement that this outside of the building belongs to the HOA. I think there's a disconnect between the residents and the board with that the HOA is the resident and the resident's money is also the board's money. So there has to be confidence in the board that we're going to be good, I'm going to mispronounce this, fiduciaries, with how we handle and manage the money, and then roll up your sleeves and get your elbows dirty with learning more about what that relationship, how it can be improved. Let's see. Oh, I'm sorry. One other thing that someone brought up to me is it appears that over the years the board has pet projects that aren't realistic with the overall infrastructure improvements, like the solar that went up for close to $500,000 and the $150,000 that was missed line item that we had to slash the landscape budget.
Thank you, Teresa. Kurt, comment?
Again, I wanted to thank you all for kind of hanging out. This has been meaningful to me, and I hope that you trust me to help move forward with the board in the future. Dog walkers, absolutely, Teresa. Us dog walkers are talking every day, and the dog park is one of the most unappreciated assets here. I just got a rescue. Her name's Betty. You'll meet her during my campaign at some point. I refused to go to any meetings for 4 years, and I'm now not gonna miss a meeting. I've gone to landscape, I've gone to finance, I've gone to Teresa's meeting, the hub meetings, unit advisors meetings. I had to get used to sitting in meetings again. I was in the corporate business for a long time. A lot of meetings. Absolutely agree. Our meetings could be cut 75%. I used to have a standing meeting where if you went to the meeting, you were going to be standing. It shortens meetings. There's a lot of things that can be done in order to help us to get more done in less time. The amenities here, I make jewelry. You don't know that. So I'm a silversmith. I used to make jewelry in high school. I worked in construction. I love the wood shop. Some of you have visited. I am so surprised that even our residents don't know that we have a dog park, and don't know that we have a lapidary, and don't know that we have a wood shop. We have a public relations issue with our own residents. Imagine if the word got out how great Oceana really is. And if you talk to somebody who just moves here, they tell you how great this place is. Because what we're doing now is we're being really, that soon already?
Mid-sentence, he has to stop.
Wow.
Okay, thank you, Kurt.
Okay,
That's your 2
I'll
minutes.
finish it in my email.
Okay, thank you. Kathleen Dowling.
Okay, that's hard act to follow. Okay, so I think some supporting the residents, I think we've missed a few people today. That's all the people that put on these activities and our volunteers. I appreciate them so much. When I go to any activity and I meet new people, they are amazed at all the activities that Oceana has to offer. They are just blown away. And that is our happy place. And so I thank all of you, all the volunteers, even the ones that show up to the party. So I'd like to support them and celebrate them in some way. And I've talked to a few people about ways we could do that, and that's, going forward. I think the residents need help sometimes negotiating the office, what happens in the office. And that brings me to office procedures and office staff. And I think there's some work that could be done there in a positive way that will help both residents get the information they need from the office, as well as the staff feeling respected. And the setup when you go in the office, it just feels odd, it's dark, it's cramped. And I think that we could support the office staff and we could support our residents by changing that up a little bit. Another support, okay, I have to add in the FLA folks. The people in the FLA have had their leases changed right underneath them. And I think that even though most of us believe here that that was an okay thing to do, we forget about these people in our regular conversations and our regular planning. We don't think about, oh, well, did you know that if you increase the dues this much, that's really that much more for the folks down the road. So there's a lot here to support.
Okay,
Thank
thank you,
you.
Kathleen. Peggy Moore.
I've given a lot of thought to this actually for the last 6 months or since I took a break from the board. And one of the reasons I took a break from the board is stress. We add stress to our homeowners. We don't respond to our homeowners. And I'm just going to address 3 things: CC&Rs, advocacy, and stress. I've been an advocate for homeowners who were at risk of losing their home from the board to the board. I've been an advocate for homeowners who didn't know they hadn't paid their HOA fees because they always got a hard copy and all of a sudden didn't during the pandemic. I've been an advocate for homeowners whose homes were damaged from water damage because our maintenance crew did not respond in a reasonable time to shut the water off. And they're left with increase in insurance fees. And I have found, as serving on a board, that we're not responding to homeowners. We're not relieving the stress of daily life. When I was concerned about my stucco repair being painted poorly and the stucco repaired poorly, instead I was accused of racism. For a mother of brown and black children, that hit me in the gut. It didn't resolve the problem until about 4 tries on the stucco repair. That's stressful. And that's not the way we want to or should be responding to our homeowners, by adding to their stress. The CC&Rs, I will just say, the Landscape Committee and the Architecture Committee are refusing to bypass our CC&Rs.
Thank you, Peggy. John Vogt, you have the last word.
One of the concerns that I've identified is the lack of stability and trust within our community. You realize that we are now searching for the 4th general manager in the past 3 years. We are on the 3rd landscape company in the last 3 years, and there's only 1 person on the office staff that was there 2 years ago when I left the board. This can't be good. We've got to work to build more stability and more trust within our community. We can start by showing respect and appreciation for our workers, our staff, for our committees, for the board. The board can help itself by reducing the stress that comes and the time commitment that comes by these long meetings, and the board having a way of always seeming to take on another project or another responsibility, which to me strikes us as micromanagement, that we've got people that are supposed to be able to do some of these things. We can do, I think, a lot to help ourselves and just to make this a much more pleasant community where we can actually trust one another. And when we can start stabilizing things so that the people we have doing these things can stick with it and we'll all benefit from it. Everybody that's running for office has been very active in the community. I'm sure all of you have seen them in various different capacities. Your assignment basically is going to be who do you want to trust for the next 2 years? Who do you want to trust to try to run our community?
Okay, thank you. Wow, everybody give them a big round of applause. You've never done it? This is hard. This is really hard to stand up and in any circumstance, it's difficult. Not knowing whether you're gonna have to go first or second or third or fourth, this is really hard, and you all did an amazing job. I so appreciate you. We're gonna do it all again on Thursday, different questions. Same format, just different questions. So I'll see you Thursday at 9:45. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thanks, Ellen.
And our timers.
Love these.
Right there.
Huge.